Hi, everybody. Welcome. It's level 2. The boss decided to get out of bed, come join the party, and do some work. So we have Cheeky the boss. Okay, we gotta get going, Cheeky. Let's get going. She's giving me so many kisses. Wonderful. Welcome to level 2 of the January 9th presentation, Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans. This is lesson 3. We have started 2019 semester for real. We are learning all about today non-duality. First of all, learning about the duality that is inherent in our perception. Oh, Cheeky, you have a huge fan club. I want you to know you can't read the chat, but everyone is saying that you're awesome and that they love you. She needs to know that. When she gets nice comments on the computer, I always read them out loud to her so that she knows 52 people think that you are a good person, that you are loved. So she knows people love her. Thank you so much, guys. Yes, going to speak all about duality as it relates to non-duality with the flying rainbow lasagna. So this shape I often describe, here, you want that? Is like the shape of non-duality. It is a visual representation of non-duality. When I say non-duality, I'm not saying moral relativism, which would be like saying good and evil, they're all the same, it doesn't really exist. No, that's not what I'm saying. So this shape is really the answer to the question that most astute children ask at some point as they're learning about cosmology. They say, Mommy, Daddy, if God is real and God is good, how can good and evil both be subsets of God? And this is my answer to that question. So we will circulate in this presentation back to that original question. How can good and evil both be subsets of God? Now I have to speak a little bit about my motivations for coming here. Again, I'm Galactic Aurora. I'm not usually in a physical body. I didn't just come here on a pleasure cruise. No pleasure cruise. It's not just a fun vacation for me to be here. I'm here with a very intentional, mission to be able to share this information about the flying rainbow lasagna. And when I created spontaneously in the moment of need this shape, I did not create it with the intention of sowing the idea of more duality. So really big clarification there as I'm giving these ideas about what this is and what this isn't. It is not meant to create more duality. I actually created this shape using my own body. It's like my body is the canvas. It's not like I painted it on the side of a building and that was the canvas of the mural. I used this body in order to paint this. How to resolve that conflict of good versus evil, or let's say consciousness that is moving towards refinement, greater levels of organization and intelligence, and consciousness that is not moving towards refinement and greater levels of organization in its intelligence. So in level 1 of this presentation, I was talking all about this shape as being a refinery of consciousness, just like a lens of your eye or a lens of glasses focuses light, and this also focuses light. And it is, if this worked perfectly, blah, blah, I don't want to get into that. We have been having the issues with the pesky occupiers of the interstices and with beings who are supposed to go towards greater levels of intelligence and organization, but instead are stuck on the membranes of death, camped out in the hallway, cooking their mini hot dogs, wearing their fingerless hobo gloves, warming their hands over their campfires, and making it very difficult for you and me and everyone else who is embodied to live our lives in an unfettered way. So this is my solution to that. So again, the reason why the squatters have been in the hallway for so long is because you need to have an actual solution. What do you do with them? Where do they go? What are we supposed to do here? Like, even if you have muddy footprints inside of your home, okay, like you're gonna like get a bucket and a mop, you're gonna mop up the footprints, and you've got like a bucket of mud. What are you gonna do with it? You gotta do something with it. So I'm going to speak about duality and perception, and I'm gonna speak about the different states of matter as the intellectual foundation for understanding energy and entropy as the shape of non-duality. So first, well, let's start off with the basic states of matter. I clear off everything from level 1. Yep, and again with my face too. Clear off everything from level 1. So solid, this is what we would call dense. And dense does not necessarily mean not good, it means to lower vibration. So here I'm just going to draw like a black line and call that is solid matter. Sometimes it's a little hard to write with this. I'm just going to try to write it, but I know it's not perfect. That's supposed to say solid. There we go. We're all familiar with solids. We are made of solids. Solid, up from a solid is a liquid. So this would be like water, just abbreviating there, liquid, right? Up from liquid, what have we got? A gas. Here I'm making little dots. This is a gas, and we've got little tiny particles in the air. What's up from a gas is a plasma. And here I'll just make, these are light waves, but they're not organized. You can tell they're flying in every single different direction. Plasma is like a fire flame. If I had a little, here I'm trying to write and do two things at the same time, plasma. If I had a little Bic lighter, I'd say, I light my lighter, and then that flame, the flame itself, is plasma. So science will tell you plasma is superheated gases that glow, and it is. That's another definition of plasma. Another way of understanding plasma, it is disorganized light waves. So we got a solid, all of this stuff that I'm showing you on this chart is all made out of light. It's light that is moving at different speeds. So solid, that is light that is not moving at a very fast speed. It's light that's actually been slowed down from the speed of light and condensed into what we know as dense matter. And as we are moving up this scale in this diagram, we are moving into less dense realms and more light realms. So solid, liquid, gas, go from a gas to a plasma, which is like a superheated gas. Now it's light. It's made out of actual light. And up from a plasma is a beam. So now I'm going to write, maybe this is like a laser beam where you have all of the peaks and all of the troughs perfectly in alignment. That makes, instead of like a big glowing ball of gas, that's what plasma looks like, a very narrow, perfectly focused beam. Hold on a second. And that beam would be analogous to what happens when you focus your light of awareness away from the membrane of death. You're not dispersing like a cone of light, like a flashlight into the room. You are instead focused like a laser going right up that central core timeline. So these are what most everyone is familiar with in terms of the states of matter: solid, liquid, gaseous, plasma, and beam. And that's going from more solid to less solid. But there's actually something that exists that is more solid and even more dense than solid. And here, so I'm using a different color to depict this. This is this gray blob down here that is known as a Bose-Einstein condensate. I won't even try to draw it with this pen. Let's see if we can write it with the right. Oops. Oh, I hope you can see that, because it's kind of in a light gray color. But anyway, Bose-Einstein condensate. That is denser than even regular dense matter. So matter is defined in these different states by its how much energy it has and how fast it's moving. Matter is moving. Even if I just hold a thing, like here, I'm just holding a cup here. You're like, Aurora, that cup is not moving. You're just holding it there. I'm like, it has movement internally. So we call that heat. If this is totally frozen at 0 degrees Kelvin, I'd be like, ow, that's cold. And also the molecules in this substance would not be moving hardly at all. Let's say I heated it up with a blowtorch. Be like, ah, that's hot, I can't touch it. But what that means is that all of the molecules in that material are moving a lot. They're moving so much, they've got tons and tons and tons of energy. So now we are understanding these states of matter are in conjunction with our experience description of being hot or being cold. This is big, file. This is way for later. So our physical matter is matter that is, not moving that fast. If we were moving really, really fast, we'd be a plasma or a beam. Are you starting to get here with me? Because again, the Ascension, like in Pedro's wonderful understanding comment in level 1 of this recording, he said, so your description, my description of Ascension is kind of like dry ice. That we have a solidified piece of soul or consciousness or stuff that is solid at room temperature. And then as it melts or changes state, instead of turning into a liquid, this is dry ice, is frozen carbon dioxide. So dry because it does not melt into a liquid, it goes directly from a solid to a gaseous state, skipping the liquefaction process. And I said, yes, that is totally accurate. That is very, very good insight, because that's exactly what we are doing with our ascension experience through this refinery of conscious that is this shape, okay? So ascension, again, is not the Christian rapture, even though it's very poetic to think of like having a white gown and, you know, floating upwards into the sky and living in the clouds. That's not literally what we are doing. What we are doing is changing the molecules in our body from moving at a slow pace to moving at a very, very, very fast pace. That makes us into light. And as we move into this very, very fast pace, we don't have to die in order to go from moving slowly to moving quickly. That's the idea of this frozen carbon dioxide that goes from a solid directly to a gas. That is ascension. That is what we are doing. So I'm including in my audience here, we are all going towards energy. So now again, I didn't invent all of this in order to cause more duality. But basically, we have the options of going towards energy and going towards entropy. So if we go towards energy, what we're doing is we're getting hotter. We're getting more heat. I'm like getting lots and lots of energy. It's making my molecules all excited. My molecules are so excited. Like this little one over here, here, you can see her. There you go. Yeah, cheeky over here, which she gets very excited. Like we go to visit some friends or whatever, and they might have some like, you know, good FOOD that they're about to give to her. She gets so excited. She vibrates. She's like this. She's like vibrating. Her ears are vibrating. She's so excited. That is what happens when more energy and more heat gets added to matter. We get to be super excited. We get to move at a faster rate internally. And eventually we are redefined. We are no longer matter. We are made out of light because we have changed the rate at which we are vibrating. All right. If we go even denser, so this is to say that there are two pathways. There's going towards energy, which means getting light, getting heat, getting more aware, moving faster, and you get vibrating more, like cheeky, being so excited about everything. Then there's movement in the opposite direction, which would be getting slower, getting more dense, losing energy, losing intelligence, not becoming more intelligent and more light, but becoming less conscious, less aware, less intelligent, and less light. So that's big, because everyone, I think, wants to say going towards light is better, going towards energy is better. There's a qualitative, better experience, like desirability, better. Like you're supposed to go in that direction, you're supposed to go to heaven, you're supposed to go to heaven by doing this. There's that huge presumption in, you know, this understanding. There's another pathway, and when I say heaven, let's say go to unity consciousness. So that central convergence point of this sculpture, the 0th dimension, the source, the destination, that's unity consciousness. When we are in that state of consciousness, we can still have a sense of individuation. However, we also understand that we are a part of the totality. We are in unity, and that the way to get to that state is through getting more information, more energy, like getting faster and getting smarter. And then we eventually join ourselves together with the divine, which is very fast and very smart. There's another way that you can reach unity consciousness. That is not getting faster and getting smarter. It actually involves getting slower and getting dumber or getting stupider. And so, because I'm talking about this basic presumption, here in this world, we look at consciousnesses and we say, you're a bad consciousness. You're supposed to be going towards being more loving, towards being more intelligent, towards being more divine. And that is a flawed basic presumption. Again, I'm not a moral relativist. I'm not saying that good and evil don't exist, or that it's only good if it's in this circumstance or it's good in this circumstance. I'm saying that literally there are some beings that we would describe as demonic or unconscious or malevolent, and they are not supposed to go towards energy. They're not supposed to go towards being a plasma and being a beam and being a light being. This is big. Because there's a lot of very well-meaning people they call themselves light workers, or they're part of the self-described New Age community, and they think that what they have to do is go around to demons, either embodied or not embodied, and hug and kiss them and tell them, they're their demon, it's not your fault, and come be raised up and be part of the light. And I'm telling you, that is totally misguided. That is not what you're supposed to be doing. So part of this is the basic stance of unconditional love that says, I accept, I allow. I accept, I allow. If you want to be a freaking demon, you can be a freaking demon. You can be, moving away from consciousness, moving away from intelligence, moving away from light, moving away from God. You're allowed to do that. I actually don't have to, like a cowgirl, like rodeo lasso you. I'm going to lasso you, and I'm going to pull you into the higher dimensional realms and make you go towards light instead. I am not supposed to do that. If you want to go jump off a cliff, if you want to be like a totally evil person, I'm supposed to be like, see ya, have a lot of fun being evil, bye, bye, bon voyage. Yeah, no, we're not supposed to do that at all. This is literally the stance of love, where you allow people to go in their directions. So there are two directions that you can go in order to achieve unity consciousness. Because down there at the bottom, right here, I'm just gesturing down here where I drew that gray blob, that Bose-Einstein condensate is a state of matter that is even more dense than physical solid matter that we are familiar with. And what happens in a Bose-Einstein condensate, instead of having individuated atoms, like let's say, here's one, here's one, here's one, and ordinarily they would be moving in their own direction with their own rate. When you bring matter down to almost 0 degrees Kelvin, and Kelvin is the scale for absolute temperature, so this means almost no heat, almost no light, almost no movement, almost no energy, a tiny fraction above absolute zero. All of these atoms that used to act as individuals begin to act differently. They begin to act in unison as unity consciousness. So science describes them as kind of like smearing on top of each other. Like here's one, then here's the next one on top, and here's the next one on top. Like they are not individuated anymore. When matter gets very, 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 very cold, it stops acting like individual atoms and begins to act like one big atom, one big thing. That's the Bose-Einstein condensate, and that is also a form of unity consciousness. So this is big. Unity consciousness can be achieved by going to energy. That's like saying, I thought I was my own individual self. Cheeky thought she was her own individual self, lived a whole life thinking she was just her own dog self, and then had that moment of connection, connected to the source, and found out, oh wait, I'm my dog self, and I'm also everything else in existence too. And that is from getting more energy, going from a relatively slow moving state or a relatively slow level of intelligence here in the physical realm, and then becoming more and more intelligent and more divinely connected until we essentially become pure light. Like what a star is pure light. We become pure photon, level beings. That is one pathway to unity consciousness. Then there's another pathway to unity consciousness where a person is completely evil, where they give off all of their energy. Instead of getting smarter, they get less well-informed, they get less intelligent, they get less well-organized, completely devolve, not evolving and becoming more organized and intelligent, but devolving and becoming less and less intelligent. That's like matter becoming colder and colder and moving at a slower and slower rate. And now I'm so cold and I'm so slow that all of the molecules that were separate and individual kind of overlap on top of each other and achieve unity consciousness. That is what is supposed to happen for the supernatural consciousness residues that we in this class jokingly refer to as pesky occupiers of the interstices. They're demons. They live in hell. Hell is the membrane between worlds, as I described in lesson level 1 of this recording for today. That swooping membrane that is like the meniscus of water, analogous to the hallway in my home, where squatters have set themselves up in the time field, not allowing energy to effectively flow where it needs to flow. And those beings, you are not supposed to lasso them and bring them into heaven, quote unquote, or bring them into a higher dimensional state where they'll rejoin with the divine and be like, like we're so totally divine. That's not what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to take all energy away from them. And the energy is the light of awareness. So, I'm aware, like I know that I exist. I have a sense of self. I have a sense of self-existence. someone sitting on my lap. I keep on showing you guys her. This person over here has definitely a sense of self-existence. You know what does not have a sense of self-existence? Something that lacks awareness. And I know a lot of people are going to want to say, oh, like demons simply lack awareness. If we just give them awareness, then they will be qualitatively different. They won't actually be demons. And I'm trying to say to you, the best thing that can be done with demons is to inform them that they are consciousness residues, that they are not they're not where they are supposed to be doing what they're supposed to be doing in the time field, and that they should stop moving through time. The real problem is that there is any molecular movement on the membranes of death where there is supposed to be no movement. It's supposed to be cold and frozen. Frozen. I'm a mime. I'm frozen. I'm frozen on the membrane of death. No one there is supposed to be moving. That means no mental activity, no consciousness, no movement through time, no doing stuff. There are beings there having consciousness, moving through time and doing stuff. That's again like saying squatters live in the hallway. They ain't supposed to live there. They have all of their resources from siphoning it off of the living, from being parasites. So the only way that they can have any amount of self-awareness or movement is by siphoning that off of the living. And this is timeline bleed through. This is making the entire time field have metabolic problems. And this is not okay at all. This is my solution. This is my solution. The idea that we can have this shape where half of the time, remember, so I know this is level 2, and in this semester, I haven't described all of this, so don't be frustrated. This is just like the appetizer of understanding this. This shape, this is the torus, double torus shape, when it starts to move in a higher dimensional context, creates this shape. And it is super positioned, like half of the time it's down here and half of the time it's up here. So half of the time, energy is moving in this direction. Half of the time, energy is moving in this direction. This direction we will arbitrarily define as energy. Towards energy, towards divinity, towards getting more, towards accumulation. Like, and I had 100 units, now I have 1,000 units. This is going towards energy. And this is going away from energy. This is losing energy. I had 100 units, now I have 50 units. That's going towards entropy. It is going away from intelligence, away from awareness, away from heat, away from light. And so sometimes I use the analogy of like a big giant thumb, like this is God's finger. And let's say I'm a little ant and I'm walking on the surface of God's finger and I'm walking in this direction. I'm walking towards the thumbnail, right? But let's say half of the time, God's finger is pointing towards the ceiling. Half of the time, God's finger is pointing towards the floor. But me, as a little ant, my journey through time, I still feel like I'm walking towards the thumbnail, no matter if the thumb is pointed this way or pointed this way. So this is how we can understand the oscillation of the singularity between these 2 points, having two different qualities of experience, but still being part of the same thumb. So I'll go over that again because I know that's a lot. I want to talk a little bit about our biology. I'm not usually in a body like this. So as soon as I got into this body, I'm like, oh, there's duality all over the place because of the body. I versus I. This is how our visual perceptive field is created. And most people in this time and place are primarily visual perceivers. Like most people use their eyesight to be able to navigate the world. It's a basic part of how we define reality and define existence. So one eye separated by a couple of inches, then you have the other eye, and our brain and system of perception make complex on-the-fly calculations in order to determine left eye versus right eye. Most people have 2 eyes, and then build a complex rendered, meaning with depth, with form, map of reality based upon those tiny little differences between the position of the 2 eyes. And within your eye, on the sensitive part of your retina, you have these little retina cells. And the way that they work is also by contrast. So this is how we can have acute vision in a variety of lighting circumstances. You know, it could be dusk where there's not very much light, or it could be the middle of the day where there's tons and tons of light. What we do is, or what our retina cells do, is they calibrate according to contrast. So they will take the brightest part of a scene and then calibrate as that's the brightest, and then look for the edges, places where it's not bright. So let's use my face on this screen as an example of how our visual perception works. There's areas like the side of my face over here and the side of my neck over here that are very well illuminated, and they have a light perception. Your retinal cells can get stimulated. They can perceive that there's light there. Then there's the areas over here, like this is dark over here. There's not light over here. That's my hair. That is the contrast. This is face, you can tell because it's light. This is hair, you can tell because it's dark. And what our whole system of perception visually does is it does thing versus thing, light versus dark, I versus I, right? So even in the sense of having a physical body that's shaped like this, we have programmed in at the very foundation a sense of comparison. Now we build our perception of the world based on comparison. I'm going to compare light color versus dark color, and that's how I can tell there's an object there. And this is, again, I'm describing human perception. I got a drink. Not every animal's eyes works the same way. So birds' eyes perceive differently than human eyes. Even dog eyes perceive differently, and dogs have a challenge with some perception that humans have no problem with. Dogs often cannot see a pane of glass or a screen going across a window. So actually it's not funny at all. Like if your dog runs into the sliding glass door, like that's not funny. Like they literally can't see what's going on there. So yeah, there are strengths and weaknesses to all these different ways of perceiving. So we have this sense, this is about good versus evil, right? Because we have this sense of thing and the thing that is supposed to exist versus anti-thing, the thing that is not supposed to exist. And I'm always very clear here. I'm not a demonic apologist. I'm not a moral relativist. So I'm not going to say like, oh, good and evil don't really exist. This is a good circumstance over here, but then it could be the same thing done in a bad circumstance. I'm not saying that. And I'm also not saying like, oh, everybody gets a free pass. Like, oh, like, it's okay. They're just like never an apologist in that way. So again, none of what I'm sharing here is with the intention of giving someone a free ride, like be an axe murderer, chop off people's heads, and then just go to entropy. That's not what I am doing here. What I'm saying is that we've been living within this mismanaged or corrupted system for like 10 or 20,000 years. And we have to have some solution as to what do we do with the squatters? If we're going to kick them out of the hallway, where are they going to go? If we're going to clear hell, clear the hell realms, the interstices, there are consciousness residues there. Where are they going to go? Because the reason why they are there, and P.S., don't claw your faces off when I tell you this, but those interstices are internal to you. They live within, if it's like the surface on a glass of water, that glass of water is you. It's your time field, it's your possibilities and probabilities, though that hallway is part of the architecture of your non-physical body that demons are occupying. Don't kill yourself because you think demons are occupying, but demons are occupying you. But there are solutions that you can do. And the good news is, so if like my house is the analogy, it's my house. I get to choose who lives in my house. No squatters, kick out the squatters. But then what do you do with them? Because if everybody kicks out the squatters, then all we've got are a bunch of displaced homeless people with no place to cook their mini hot dogs. And then they're just going to get into someone else's house. That's how they came to our house. They killed Mars and they're like, now we'll go to Earth because they didn't have some place to be. Got to have a solution. This is my solution. This is a good solution that alleviates suffering on every level. So again, it's not a free pass. It's not like saying, oh, you're a demon. It doesn't matter that you killed people. Oh, you're a demon. You get into heaven anyway. No, because there's a difference between the unity consciousness experience at entropy, totality, like having energy, having awareness, being aware, existing, and the unity experience at the state of non-existence. These are two qualitatively different experiences. So essentially, this flipping back and forth of the singularity is an oscillation between existing and non-existing, being and non-being. I am not. I am not. And these two different points on the flying rainbow lasagna represent the two different journeys of consciousnesses, some of whom are meant to go towards existence. I exist. I'm alive. I'm here. I'm aware of myself. And some of whom are supposed to go towards non-existence. The crappy occupiers of the interstices are supposed to go towards non-existence. And when you go towards non-existence, you're not suffering. You're not aware of yourself. You are frozen in a state of unawareness. And also, you're not moving through time. And this is a big thing, because if we live in the time field, we're alive and we're having energy and we're supposed to move through time. And the beings that are stuck on the membranes of death are supposed to be frozen, no longer moving through time. This is really big. So whatever, if today is Wednesday and I have something inside of me that I moved to Friday, that thing moved to Friday. So if we have demonic occupiers of the interstices within our energy fields and we are moving through time, they are also moving through time. So they have literally tried to piggyback or hijack yours and mine and all these other wonderful people, alive beings, trajectory through time, that they can't actually get to their destination under their own power. So what they are trying to do is do it by hijacking yours and my ascension experience. Basically, like, because what they want to do is they want to get to unity consciousness, but they don't have the gas in their car to get there. So that is a big understanding, that they have these occupiers of the interstices, the demonic beings, whatever you want to call them, they have a type of religious mania, worse than any fundamentalist Christian. The demons have a religious mania that makes them always want to get back to the source. Remember, they will say, oh, we got kicked out of heaven, we got kicked out of heaven. No, no, no. They actually chose initially, this is lesson 18 stuff, I'm presaging it, they chose to leave the source, but not on a bridge of love. That was entirely their own choice. They have to live with their own horrible, crappy life choices. This is really big. Of things that I teach here in like the structure of reality, a big part of it is understanding personal responsibility for life choices, because lots of people, both embodied and no longer embodied, will say like, don't blame me, it's not my fault, it's this and that. Everybody has to take responsibility for the things that they do and don't do. So those beings a long time ago chose to go into a state of entropy, but then they stopped along the way and they flip-flopped and they're like, oh wait, I changed my mind, I don't want to go to entropy, now I want to actually steal your energy and try to go back home to energy. They are not supposed to go to energy. They are supposed to go from a state of having whatever 100 units of energy to having 0 units of energy. That is their journey. So this shape represents a recalibration of our own basic expectations, the expectations that everybody should go to the source, that everybody should be aware, that everything should be alive. This is an entire cosmic, multidimensional refinery of consciousness. You've got on level 1, your individual refinery of consciousness, who you are and who you aren't. And then we have refinery of consciousness on a macroscopic level. Who is supposed to be in existence? You, me, Cheeky. Who's not supposed to be in existence? The freaking demons, okay? And this whole entire, so this is the understanding, what is the value of this experience? Because we've undergone a lot of suffering. The value of this experience is we are finally refined, made a separation between the beings that are supposed to be in existence and the beings that are not supposed to be in existence. And then we actually have a tool to be able to do something about it. So everybody who's supposed to exist, woohoo, raise your hands, you're supposed to exist. And please direct yourself over here and exist in unity consciousness in a state of total energy. And everybody who's not supposed to exist, please direct yourself over here and please be frozen. Please have no energy. Please no longer move through time and no longer have an impact on the consciousnesses that are in existence. So we have this flashing back and forth between I exist, I don't exist. And all the stuff that is not supposed to exist goes into a state of non-existence. So I have to say, because there's all these things in spirituality and religion and the New Age movement that say, if something is in existence, it's supposed to be in existence. Like that's faulty logic. There's a lot of things that are in existence right now that are not supposed to be in existence. They are erroneous. So because there's this song or whatever, and says, there's nothing you can do that can't be done. There's nothing you can sing that can't be sung. Kind of like this idea, like, oh, if you can rape and murder and pillage, then clearly it's meant to be. If you can do it, you should do it. No, there are some consciousnesses that should not be in existence. There are some activities that should never have been done. There are some contributions to the time field that should not be done. And those things should go into a state of non-being. And when they go into a state of non-being, the ripples spread outward concentrically through the past and the future, and it has a profound transformative effect. So if you meet a supernatural residue of consciousness, be it a ghost or a demon or an occupier of the interstice, don't have extensive conversations with them. Don't give them energy. Send them to entropy. And the way that I envision this is kind of like, imagine a giant vacuum cleaner, industrial sized vacuum cleaner, where it's like, oh, look, you know, spider webs, cobwebs, suck it on up, suck all the energy up. And it goes, and I imagine that that energy is flying rainbow lasagna going through an interdimensional portal to where it is supposed to go. Because all of the energy that is stuck on the membranes of death, on the interstices, has been hijacked and repurposed. It's been taken from where it's supposed to go. So it's, let's say it's, this is the membrane of death. This energy is actually supposed to be all the way over here. I'm going to vacuum it up and I'm going to send it on over there. And this is how we begin to rectify the time field. And that over there, that could be across time. It could be across the entire cosmos. I know that there's a lot of questions, and we'll get into this because I'm sure that there's a lot of clarification that I have to give. Okay. Salu says, so what is it that causes the plasma particles to be organized? Consciousness, life force, energy, prana? Lovely, lovely question. The basic answer is energy. And energy is analogous to intelligence, which is like an organizational principle. So the more energy / intelligence that the system gets, the more organized it gets. And that's what, from all of my paintings, that's what you can understand. This higher dimensional, less dense realm is extremely well organized. The time field is very perfectly well organized, even down to like the time, all of the musicians, all of the molecules fit together perfectly. All of the, you know, violin bows are moving in perfect unison. Like that's unity consciousness. And the way that it's from light. That's the best way I can say it. Like imagine that my studio is the cosmos. And as I turn on more and more and more light bulbs, that it is possible to see better. Like I can perceive more, and I can say, oh, like this line is out of place. I better erase that pencil line. That's not right. I better draw it like this instead. And that's essentially what's happening. Like the stars in the stellar network are made of light. And right now, we as humans in this present condition, we get like a tiny little crumb of light, a little fraction. And what's happening on our planet right now is much more light, intelligent awareness, organizational principle is coming to us, and it is organizing us. It's reorganizing us on a cellular level so that you're more organized, like Tetris. You're a tessellation. You're not merely a hither-thither yawn conglomerate. You're more organized inside, and you have more access to organized thoughts, which is what we would call intelligence. So then we drink a little bit more water. Life force energy itself is analogous to this organizational principle. Intelligence, light, and life force energy all cause greater levels of organization. Think about a baby that is gestating in the womb. None of that is by accident. It is intentional. It is an intentional miracle that cells and matter can coalesce into an organized form known as a physical body that can actually contain consciousness on this level. Patricia says, lots of inner work, shadow work, and claiming sovereignty. That is what this is all about, this personal refinery of consciousness and galactic or cosmic scale refinery of consciousness. Like I said, we're doing layers of tapestry, and that same needle pulling thread goes through all the layers. Individual layer, aurora, learning about things. Cosmic layer, learning about things. The cosmic self is doing the inner work and the shadow work of learning who am I really and who am I not, right? This is very big. So as each one of us becomes greater aligned, going from askew to more and more and more truthful, we are changing our trajectory. The entire time field gets smarter, gets more intelligent, gets more organized, figures out who is its true self. Because again, a big principle or foundation idea that I am sharing with everyone over and over is the idea that, you know, just like a nucleus of a cell in your body can have a pathogenic infection, like a virus. In exactly the same way, the divine, God, that source, the primary, you know, emanation of consciousness here, can have an infestation, can have a pathogen in the nucleus that's not supposed to be there. I think it's hugely presumptive to say everything that's in existence is supposed to be here. Everything that's in the nucleus is supposed to be there. No. In your body, if your cells made that presumption, everything that's in the nucleus is supposed to be there and it's our connection to God, it's a divine blueprint, then your body would die. The first time you ever got a cold or the flu or whatever, a virus, your body would die because it would say, everything that's written in the nucleus comes directly from God and I should listen to it. No, sometimes the nucleus has jerk faces in it that tells you to make a bunch of mucus and, you know, all this other stuff. That's not what you're actually supposed to do with your body. And that's called having an infection. And our time field has an infection. So it's hugely erroneous to think everything that is in existence comes from God. No, we are part of that discernment system that just, we're like the sensory, like if my hand touches something, it's like, ow, that hurts. And it's like, we are the sensory apparatus that is helping the greater, larger, you know, metabolic being to sense what parts are God and what parts are not God. So just like we make a choice about who I am and who I'm not. I'm hungry, there's a sandwich, but I got to steal to get the sandwich. Is that really me or is that not really me? How about this? Because I can certainly, you know, like I can sense suffering with my sensorium. How about I can sense where there is godliness, where people are helping each other, where there is love, where there is assistance, where there is something beyond mere self-service. I can also sense that and send that information to the divine. So we are the sensory organs of a divine being, sensing where things are awry, where they are askew, and where they are in alignment. Because I send back a lot of information where I'm like, good stuff going on over here. Like this person, this thing is doing good. So he says, someone brought to my awareness that we are doing this work to raise the consciousness of malevolent being so that we can clear the time field. Is this the same thing? And she says, you just answered my question. Thanks, Aurora. Thank you. Sometimes I do that. So part of it is I'm connected to you. I'm not sure if I'm reading it as you're writing it, but definitely I do that all the time. Responding, because we are in rapport. We're musicians and I'm playing my music and you're hearing it and you're responding back. So we got some good gigging happening here. We're doing good. Pedro says, now I get it. To refine something, you break it to separate the impurities. Yes. And to refine consciousness, it was broken down into all the aspects to experience and find the best timeline and choices. Beautiful description. That is exactly right. We are exactly like any kind of mineral or ore that is being refined, where you've got, you know, the gold and the good stuff that you want, and then all like the black, poopy stuff that you don't really want. And this whole experience of being here embedded in the physical and facing all of these real torments. It's really difficult. Oh my goodness, psychic weather report. If you have been feeling agitated over the past week or 10 days, it's not just you. There's some crazy mega SHIT that is being poured on our planet. You just got to keep on staying focused on, I mean, what I do is I focus on artwork and on music and on, you know, hugs and loving my dog. Focus on positive relationships and things that feed you and make you feel loving. Focus on giving love to others. Focus on doing service to other people. Like if you can help someone else out in some way. Focus on the things that refill your batteries, like personal exercise and yoga and artwork and music. We are not in normal times. So just also understand that this, and I don't do a lot with current event stuff because I like to keep this information here as abstract and, you know, applicable to any situation as I can. But right now, what is going on in our, you know, experience is like we are being very much disarranged and, you know, we're definitely in the goo stage of like metamorphosis from caterpillar into butterfly. So this is a very vulnerable time. People are hugely suggestible. Any little thing. It's kind of like if you've taken a psychedelic and any little suggestion, you're like, yes, that's the truth. I believe that. Like people are hugely impressionable right now and very suggestible and not necessarily using skepticism or rational discernment. And so it can be very challenging to interact with other people. And I've noticed people being angry or flying off the handle, and communication is almost impossible. It's just like if you're talking to people who have taken some kind of a drug or, you know, they're drinking alcohol. It can be challenging to even communicate. So yes, I've just been doing a lot of the things that nourish myself on a deep level, and I would encourage other people to do the same thing. Surround yourself by good people who love you. Don't do too much on politics and media. And you know, we're on the journey. Like we're on this journey of transforming from, you know, sublimating from the solid dry ice into the gaseous dry ice. Like it might not be time to socialize. It might be time to go within and temporarily separate yourself from other people's journeys and other people's music so that you can really focus on your own music and on tuning your own guitar as best you can. So Lou says that was Sienna's question, Aurora. Got it. Patricia says, triggered, so easy. I understand what you're talking about. Cece, thank you so much for the current time update. Super helpful. Good. Because actually, like, you know, I try not to do too much on current events. A lot of people in private message have reached out to me. So this is why I'm also saying this. People are going through individual struggles, family struggles, and it's not just health stuff, but it's a feeling of like, I'm sane and I'm okay, but everyone around me is crazy or out of control. So if you're feeling that way, solidarity, it is part of, like, we are going through this, area of the time field where we're all incredibly suggestible. And it is not from taking a molecule like LSD, it's from this part of this journey. So if someone in government says to you a particular thing while you're suggestible, you can believe that. Like if you've ever taken LSD and then whatever, you're going to watch the news. But usually under those circumstances, you can see through the lies. Someone tries to tell you something that doesn't seem truthful at all. And you're like, that sounds like a bunch of BS. So I think that it's there's a value to this. But I'm seeing a lot of people believing almost anything. Like JFK Jr. is alive and he's on a private island with Lady Diana. I think that people are laughing at the gullibility or suggestibility of some people in believing some of these things. So take it down a couple of notches, like definitely, question where ideas are coming from. What's the source of this idea? Why do you believe in this? Even something seemingly as innocent as, quote, the event, capital T, capital E. I think it's another psyop. So be cautionary red flags on any type of externally induced expectation of a particular date. The event is going to happen on some particular day and be so special, because I keep trying to tell everyone this transformation happens spontaneously and it happens without the need of a calendar date. So and expectations like that can be destructive because it can literally happen right now. We can be like, wait a minute, guys. Look at that. We all just sublimated and changed to a different state. Sienna says, oh, very much so. Lots of sitting going on for me at the moment. I think that that's a good practice too. And I mean, whatever, I do my flying rainbow lasagna every day. Some days it's challenging. Some days it's smooth sailing. I do it no matter what. Pedro says, you wanted us to remind you of the overlapping timeline. Thank you, Pedro. You are wonderful. So advanced level stuff, overlapping timelines. Let me get to the whiteboard. As I was saying in level 1, got to clear all this stuff out. Hold on a second, clear this all out. We're talking about the path of least likelihood and who you really are. So if this is you in this present level of incarnation, and this central core timeline is who you really are. Now I'm going to draw another person's life, and they kind of overlap, but they don't fully overlap. So there's the black person and there's the red person over here. My line drawings are not perfect, but you get what I'm talking about. So both of these lives have an ascension timeline. Here's the central core timeline that exits through the wormhole. Here's this guy's central core timeline that exits through the wormhole. But there is no overlap between those two experiences. So this person over here, when they are perfectly in alignment, will never meet or interact with this person over here. There's no coincidence. There is no overlap. The only area of overlap is over here, where I am highlighting in blue. That's where these two lives can interact, share ideas, share activities, have an impact on one another's lives. But you can tell from this diagram, the only timelines that overlap are the relatively shorter timelines on the periphery, that the central core timelines are not ones where they can interact at all. So all of this as a graphic depiction in order to say that when you meet someone who is on their peripheral timeline, you are meeting a distorted version of who they are in terms of their life experience and their characteristics or their personality or their sense of self. This blue area over here is going to be a diminished version of this person over here, is going to be an imperfect version, and not a bad, necessarily evil version, but I will get to that. More like the sense of, if I'm going to write a term paper, first I will write the paper and it's going to be not grammatically well structured and there's spelling mistakes and there's flaws. That's what it's like to be in this blue zone over here. There's some good ideas in there. It's got the potential and a lot of spelling mistakes. And then it takes going through the editing process many, many, many times to fix the spelling mistakes, fix the grammatical errors, and then finally structure the paragraphs to say what you exactly want to say. When you've done that, that's when you're on this timeline over here. So this person, when they're in this unrefined zone, they've got potential. However, it is not the potential that has been completely refined. So when you are meeting someone that is on one of their peripheral timelines, you're meeting a fraction of who they really are. And sometimes you're meeting, their true self. Sometimes you're meeting such a distorted version of their true self that it is almost unimaginable who they are on their true path. So one example, I use Hitler as the example because everyone thinks of him as like the worst maniac of the 20th century, horrible, horrible person. That, the version of Hitler that killed lots of people and was, horrible, violent, bloodthirsty monster, is this peripheral area over here, right? Not the central core timeline. That if Hitler had made different life choices, had responded differently to his artistic career, not being accepted in art school, all these different things, then he would be the central core version, not a horrible, bloodthirsty murderer maniac. So this is to understand, again, I'm not an apologist in any way. The people that we meet and interact with who are violent psychopaths are the peripheral version of the central core person that they really are. What I'm trying to say is within each one of us is the pre-programmed, inescapable reality of that ascension timeline, that path of least likelihood, your real personality characteristic. Let's call it the divine, perfect version of you. That exists. That's not deniable. That is like saying this sculpture is the shape, and this shape is what all of these people are shaped like. So Hitler has an ascension timeline where he has very different personality characteristics, is a completely different person. Charles Manson, like whoever, the worst people of the world that you can think of, Dick Cheney, we're interacting on our timelines with their peripheral selves. And their undistorted central core timeline selves might be totally unrecognizable to us. I mean, whatever, I don't know about Manson. Maybe he was like he would have been a guitar player in some 60s band and then worked in a health food store. Like you wouldn't know. You'd be like, oh, like that guy over here, perfectly nice health food store worker who helped me to carry my stuff out to the car. On a peripheral timeline, horrible, bloodthirsty serial killer. So again, I'm not an apologist. I'm trying to give perspective that just like a peripheral example of a peripheral life would be you have all of your limbs amputated and you can no longer be a dancer. Peripheral life can also be horribly mind-controlled and tortured to the point of becoming a bloodthirsty murderer like this. So now you're starting to understand. Okay, let me go back to my face and back to more questions. The overlapping timelines. I think that I illustrated that pretty well. Sienna says, so I feel that my true self, read this better, and my current experience of self is going through the shifts simultaneously, and that my evolution of my true consciousness is happening all at once. And what I have been shown is the actual me on my home star going through those experiences to help me on this particular timeline to refine my human parts and align. Does that make sense? That absolutely makes sense. Yes. Yes, I'm happy that you are perceptive and self-aware enough to be able to see that's going on in your life and articulate enough to be able to say it in the chat. I think that's pretty impressive and good. So yeah, to go through that again, you have a sense of being on your home star, or let's say with your central core timeline, the real version of you, and that you're having experiences here as an embodied human on this version of Earth that is helping to refine your personality, to get to your most godly, divine aspect of self. And this is also how we can understand things like the various timelines that change. So just about a year ago, we had the timeline where it was, fake missile scare hit Hawaii, but it wasn't really a fake missile scare. On another neighboring timeline, it was a real missile. It wasn't a fake missile. It was a real missile. And then we really had a horrible nuclear explosion. It really did change our world. But we're on the neighboring time layer, where to us, it was just, oops, a fallacy, a thing that just, it wasn't there. But now you understand. Hans says, so an ascending person cannot meet any other ascending person. Central timelines not overlapping. Really, really good question. Graphically, from my understanding of the cosmos, yes. All of us do our ascension journey on our own. So, but we might overlap. So let's say this is my ascension timeline, this is your ascension timeline. We might not overlap like this, but we might be very close. So that maybe some of my timelines where I'm 89 years old might overlap with your timelines where you ascend. So there are closenesses, but the real answer is in the way that all of these vortices come together. The ascension timelines do not overlap. You're always doing your own thing. You got to be prepared to always play your own music. I will draw it rather than use my mouth because it just will make a lot more sense. If this is here, just get a color. Let's say this is the center that all of these different timelines are converging to. Here's one ascension timeline, ascension, ascension, ascension. And then these are all of the little vortices that go like this. I'm not drawing this very perfectly, but you're getting it. Here's the big base. Oh, that pen did not work. Here, like this, like this, like this. So now you're getting it. Look at that. I just drew this yellow sculpture that I hold up all the time. So we have vortices that come from different vectors that all converge at the same point, and those central core, like you can think of it as like the tent pole, the center that goes up there. Technically, they don't overlap, even though they can come very, very close. They don't overlap. So you got to be prepared to do your own journey. You got to be prepared to not focus on the peanut gallery or the other people around you and where they are going, and focus completely on your own journey. Because you might travel in tandem with someone for many years, but then they have to go in their own direction. And this is why I say about this class, if you're called to be in this class, be in the class. If you're called to do something else, do something else. I'm literally not supposed to lasso anyone and say, come in my direction, come in my direction. No, please go in the direction that you need to go in. Because again, like someone might be going in their ascension direction that is not exactly overlapping with my own path. So that is a really excellent question. SJ, first of all, good to see you. Thank you for being here. Says, when we are on our central core timeline, are we able to interact with others who are on their central core timeline, or is it a solo mission? It's pretty much a solo mission, except when we get to energy, when we all get to hear unity consciousness, we're all aware of each other. So you have to have your individual journey and your individual trajectory to get to that point of unity consciousness. When you are aligned with or joined with unity consciousness, you're not alone. You're actually like, oh wait, you took that pathway to get here, I took this pathway to get here, and we're all here. And that's where like the cosmic band is, that's like where the symphony actually happens. But the journey of getting there is a solo mission, which is why you have to be really, really strong, and you have to be really secure in your own music, because someone else might be a totally cool person who is also on their ascension timeline, but they might say something like, well, Aurora, I have to go to this place and eat nothing but, grapes for the next 10 years. And I'm like, that's totally fantastic. Good luck, do your thing. But it is not my path to go to that ashram and eat nothing but grapes for 10 years. That's not the direction I need to go. So again, you might have like very, very close, tangential, very concurrent journeys with someone else who's alive at the same time. But at a certain point in your personal path, they might have to diverge and go somewhere else. And that's why we have to practice this stance of acceptance and allowance, not lassoing someone onto your own timeline, because they might be ascending, they might be going exactly where they're supposed to go, but it's not totally overlapping and in conjunction with your experience. And so like, I'm a bit, I also should clarify, because I made on my introductory rant when I was talking about veganism and things like that, I'm really clear. I don't ask or require or tell anybody else what to eat and what not to eat. What I was trying to say, and thank you. So Lynn is a very lovely participant in this class, and she's a vegan, and her body does not tolerate meat or dairy. I totally understand. I should clarify my language, that I was speaking more about ethical vegans, beings who can, with their bodies, digest meat or dairy protein, but they're choosing not to from an intellectual, ethical standpoint, and who look on other people with judgment that they are eating meat and dairy. And even to the point of violence, like I was talking about that YouTuber from Iran who shot up the YouTube headquarters, and she is a rampant ethical vegan. That there's a AI program that's running in you if you hate other humans because they are eating plants, because they're eating animals and drinking milk. And so you're going to be violent towards other humans because you're supposedly so wonderful and protective of animals. That is what I was trying to say. So it is not merely about the dietary choices that you're making. I encourage everyone to make their own dietary choices and never tell you to try to be like me. It is more the sense of having a skewed ethics and values program that allows you to hate other people and curse their food, because it's also cursing your food if someone says to you that bacon will give you colon cancer. That is wrong to do that. Because you can say, like, those vegetables are covered with leptospirosis and will harm you. Like, that is wrong. You're cursing their food. So yeah, everybody allow everybody their pathways. Pedro says, did this meeting other non-refined persons happened in the time of Atlantis? In the time of Atlantis, everybody was on the central core timeline. No one was askew. Everybody was their true self. So imagine what it would be like if you lived in a society where everybody was on their completely central core timeline being their best self. Nobody was a diminished version of self. Nobody was a diseased version of self. Nobody was a psychopathic, distorted version of self. That is, I think I should almost end on that moment. There's more questions in the chat, but that is where I want to bring everyone mentally. What would life be like if every single person that you went around and interacted with was mentally healthy, physically super healthy and athletic, spiritually centered, and completely on their own unique path, and not looking for approval or acceptance or requiring it from anybody else, and not looking to take anything from anybody else? That is what the society of Atlantis was like. It was an amazing, it's what our world can be like. No psychopaths, and all just 100% people on their path doing exactly what they need to do, and with no questions. Salu says, I think that what Hans is asking is whether or not two ascending people can meet in person. Ascending, yes, they can meet in person, but at a certain point, they're going to have to refine and go on their own paths. So more to Salu's question, the way I understood your answer, Aurora, is that they can meet in person, but they cannot be the same person. Just thought I'd make that distinction. I think that's a really good clarification to make. Yeah, I would say, like, let's say everyone in this class, we're all ascending. I'm ascending, you're ascending, Chika is ascending, and we're all sharing a timeline right now because clearly we're all in the same class interacting. At a certain point, what I presume will have to happen is we will all have to diverge, where we're not going to be in this class all together, but we might be in our own particular timelines, on our own particular mental state, and that will be the ascension. So right now we're ascending, we're in the process of transformation and everything like that, but I also understand that I might not be in your presence when I actually transform, that I might have to go outside, go away from you, or not be connected to you, or go in a different place, in order to have, to basically, like, we don't hold on to each other when we do this. And it's why it's a marathon and you run under your own power. Pedro says, your sculpture drawing looks like the cross patty or patty cross. I know what you're talking about. I think it's also called Celtic cross Crusaders, like of the Crusaders. Patricia says, what do plants eat? I say to you, plants eat light, and they also do eat minerals. They need micronutrients and minerals. Patricia says, symbiosis and harmony with the environment can include eating meat, but it is a personal body choice for what is right for one's body. Yeah, well, we can get into this. And so there's a lot to be said about herbivores and ruminants, and that they have a wonderful relationship to soil building, and that they are meant to be roaming free, not in horrible feedlots eating grain. Like, the whole way that we treat animals needs to be changed in order for our environment to be healthy. Michael Pollan has a lot of good writing on this. He's a food writer, and he writes about the traditional setup of farms having cows, pigs, and chickens, and there's a reason for all of that, as well as plants. That really basically is being an omnivore and respecting all of these different types of things. So hey, look, it's wonderful. If you have a stance where you say that you want to reduce suffering in the world, that is actually really wonderful, but then you have to look to see if your dietary choices and farming proclivities are actually reducing suffering, because clearly if you choose not to eat meat, but you choose to eat a lot of genetically modified soy, or soy that has been grown in places that are traditionally the pastures, you chop down a bunch of trees to grow a bunch of monocropping soy. That's clearly not what we want. So we can make a distinction between that. And I read something that's really wonderful that I really would like people to think about, the idea that being a vegan is not necessarily as in tune as being, let's say, a non-colonized indigenous wild crafter. Yeah, it's different. If you can buy the soy stuff and not eat meat and be a vegan, go into the grocery store. It is much more. Imagine instead being able to source all of your food locally and ingesting all of the plants and animals that are indigenous to the time and place that you and eating them in the right season. Like that's how we're supposed to eat. And what is non-colonialized diet means none of the processed foods that are available from our industrialized culture. I think that's way more of a radical way of serving both your own body and serving the planet that we exist upon than the idea. The problems that I have with veganism is less suing other people to try to get onto your own path. Even if your path is not to eat animals or plants, that is wonderful. It is not appropriate for you to influence other people's behavior, definitely not in terms of diet. And so that's why I don't tell all of you guys to eat bacon and eggs for breakfast or to do exactly like what I do. And I also recognize I'm a flying rainbow lasagna and I'm in an anomalous human body. So the things that work for me are not the things that work for everyone. So that's why I gave everybody the freedom to do their own thing. And I also respectfully ask that you allow me to have the freedom to do what is right for me. Pedro says, I'm glad my diet includes a big serving of lasagna every week. I am also super happy. Thank you to everyone who tunes in for my lasagna. And it really is a type of food. I'm a frequency bridge. I connect beyond that, diminished thing, beyond that crystallization. I connect to all the good food that's out there and I eat some of it for myself. And then I'm like, yeah, I got to share some of this with the rest of you all. This is literally my job. It's what I'm doing. So I love to make lasagna and share it with everyone here. So Sienna says, thank you for your glorious insights, Aurora. Thank you so much. Sienna, so glad to have connected and have the opportunity to take part today. Thank you for being a part of everything. So Sienna, I'm not sure if you're visiting Salou or whatever, but you're wonderful to see you. Thank you for being part of it. Welcome to the class. I hope that you'll continue to return. Pedro says, I was supposed to eat that burger because it's meant to ascend with me. So literally, Pedro, I'm agreeing with that approach. That is how I approach all of my food. And you know something, I think that you actually wrote me an email that I'm so late on responding to all of my emails. Let me just say it here. Was when you first joined in the class or someone asked me, what do I recommend in terms of food? And I wanted to write back that I do not recommend always eat this, never eat this. It is not about the nutrients. It is about the way we eat those nutrients. So when I'm eating my food, I am always making cosmic love to my food. That means I'm sensing it, tasting it, and literally incorporating it into the physicality of my body so that just like what Pedro reminded us of in that comment, it can sublimate from solid directly to gas. My body is made up of lots of chicken and pigs and cows and fish and lots of plants and lots of everything. I eat a lot of coconuts. There's a lot of coconuts in this body. And all of those ingredients and all of the consciousness from all of those wonderful organisms comes with me on this journey. So that's really big. That is cosmic partnership. Like I'm making love to this organism. It's literally coming inside of my body and it's part of my journey. So the real answer is, I don't recommend always eat, never eat. The nutrients itself, it is about the attitude that we use. We're literally eating sunlight. We're literally eating starlight. We're literally eating divine consciousness in the form of food. So all of these mental programs that get set up with the intellect that say allowed, not allowed, I'm good, you are bad, all of that is disrespect to the basic nutrients that are given to us to support our body in life. And those basic nutrients are given to us by the thing that wants us to eat them. Like that's big. Like mom didn't cook all this food just so that you could stare at it. Like we're supposed to eat this food. You're supposed to eat it in the right way, use it in a respectful way, and you use it in a way so that your body is super healthy. Sally says, I love steak. I love steak too. I make really good stuff. I'll just tell you really quick. One of my basic favorite things that I do now is, cause I don't do greens and bread and things like that. I'll do like a bacon wrap where I have, romaine lettuce, wasabi, mayo, bacon, tomato, and then, avocado. That's like fantastic. If you want to make something really good, like I'll make that food for you guys. Kristen says, Aurora looks so beautiful and radiant. Oh, you're so lovely. Thank you. You are such a wonderful energy. Thank you for all you share. I am happy to do it. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for eating the lasagna that I'm sending out. Yeah, guys, you totally are sensing it. I'm tuned in with the sun and the stars, and it's coming through me. I call it the share light foundation. I'm sharing light from the light that I'm connected to. If anybody's not got good light connection, maybe it's a little cloudy or overcast in your area, so I send it out to you. So Lou says, I didn't think it was me, but it's still a good question to ask. Good. Pedro says, always good to see you and everyone. I am going to wrap things up for today. Everyone, oh wait, a big comment. Cece just said, if you've seen this video by Mr. BBB333, I do watch his stuff. Do you have any insights? Project Bluebeam, HARP, projection, what appears to be a real Stargate next to the sun. So I watched that video after I watched first just a regular satellite image of there was a coronal mass explosion, and it really did look like it was highlighting a large portal-shaped object outside of the sun, but this was a different video and different footage than Mr. BBB. The Mr. BBB images, when it looked like an actual manufactured Stargate there. I took that as an allegory, that the image should not be taken literally. You shouldn't believe that there's an actual physical clank Stargate up there, but that it was trying to say to everyone like, hey, there was just a Stargate up there, kind of like, I don't believe that you can use a lie to tell the truth. However, I do understand that some objective materialists might not get the information unless it is placed in a more materialistic format. So people couldn't understand that there was a Stargate next to the sun until Mr. BBB said, oh, it looks like there's a Stargate up there. Now they kind of get it. So this is like the level of communication that we're getting. We're getting a lot of allegories. So just try to take it with a grain of salt and not be too literal. But yeah, so the sun is a portal anyway. The sun is a portal just as part of its normal functioning of what it is. It's an aperture. Photons flow through it, and the consciousness flows through it. And you can also go into it and have the reverse journey. So yeah, it's very normal for me to understand that the sun is a portal. And there's all sorts of interesting things coming from the sun and flying into it. Thank you for the love, Pedro. Thank you very much. Sarah, the Share Light Foundation, thank you. I know I haven't even publicized that yet. I'm going to get into it. I'm going to end the recording for right now because I need to do a little bit of exercise with this one. She's been very patient the whole time. Usually we get the little WALK, so she's been like kind of waiting here like, I hope we get to go soon. So we're going to go very soon. Thank you so much to this beautiful class and for everybody who's been on board. And yes, I encourage and invite anyone who's done level 1 and who's already done the recorded lessons for that, move on to level 2. And there's more interesting, good stuff to learn about on that. And of course, as always, scholarships available. And you don't have to take the recorded lessons to be in the webinars. But most people who do, they get back to me. They're like, Aurora, things make so much more sense now. So I would encourage and invite everybody to be able to do so. So I'm going to end the recording for right now, but not end the entire conversation. Thank you so much. I hope to see you next.